Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ellis Nordhoff, and today I'm joined by Jay from the Stretford Paddock to do the opposition view on Everton versus Manchester United. Jay, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, good. I'm glad the international break's almost over now. We can get back to proper football.
Yeah, definitely. It's safe to say it's not been a quiet international break for both teams, really, but definitely Everton. How are you feeling about Manchester United at the moment?
It's weird, right? Because obviously the performances haven't been great. I think there's been quite a few disappointing results. We've had disappointing results home and away, but some of the results at Old Trafford in particular have really been sort of deflating. Yeah, despite all that, despite this feeling of we've not really got going this season and the manager's under pressure and things aren't great, it's not been that bad. Like if you look at our form, I think we're the most informed team in the Premier League at the minute. Which just when I saw that, I couldn't believe it. I thought,
Four wins out of five, isn't it?
yeah, I thought I'd misread it, but it's true. And I think there is this. It just feels a little bit like for United, a lot of almost everything that can go wrong has in certain games, like certain VAR decisions. And I don't want to just come in and moan about VAR decisions and referees and stuff, but there's been 50-50 decisions where they've gone against us. There's been injuries that we've had at crucial times that have really affected us. It just feels like we haven't had the rub of the green as well. So whilst it's been underwhelming, it's not quite all doom and gloom. And I don't like to say this to Evertonians, but whenever I feel bad, sometimes I look at what's going on for Everton and I think, no offense, bro, but I think, you know what, it could be worse. Like,
Well, why don't we talk about that? It's been a really rough week for Evertonians. Obviously, the 10-point deduction, it's the biggest sporting sanction ever handed out to a top flight club, and we're the subject of it. What did you think of that deduction? Would you say it was fair?
listen, I'm not going to pretend I know a lot about it. I don't. I've sort of seen the headlines and I read a little bit about it in some of the papers. Obviously broke the rules, been punished. The main sort of interest, though, the most interesting thing about this for me as a United fan, I'm not going to kid you, I'll pretend is what's going to happen to City. Like every
Yeah.
United fan I spoke to about this has just been, what does this mean for Manchester City then? If Everton are getting a 10-point deduction, and no one really had Everton on their radar as someone who, or a club that were taking a mick and massively breaking the rules. Obviously, you had broken some rules, as you wouldn't have had the points deduction, but it wasn't like everyone was going, oh, Everton, what's going on with them? City, we know, are facing 115 charges.
Yeah.
So when this happened, I did feel for you, but part of me was thinking, okay, if they're getting 10 points, then surely City have got to be getting the book thrown at them, which, if I'm being brutally honest, is what I'd love to say. I don't know though, because we know that it's not always as cut and dried than that. And City have got so much money and resources from lawyers. And I think that there's this argument that Everton cooperated where City have sort of tried everything they can to delay this and to put obstacles in the way of it. So I'm not holding my breath too much, but that was the main sort of takeaway I got from it all was, okay, that's quite a harsh punishment for a team that I wasn't even aware were breaking the rules, certainly not anything drastic. So to see we'll have to wait and see what happens with City, because it's someone pointed out to me earlier, one of the lads Joey I work with said that two of the teams that have been punished for breaking the rules are actually United and Everton. United got a fine last season,
Yeah.
and Everton have had these points deduction, and yet they're not the teams that are probably on everyone's radar as breaking the rules. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Of course, with City and also with Chelsea as well. Although I'm not as bothered about Chelsea, if I'm being brutally honest.
Well, they've opened up a massive can of worms now, haven't they? We see what's going to happen with the City case, what's going to happen with the Chelsea case, and these might take years just to go through, mightn't they? Manchester City's 115 charges. They've got to work through all of them. It took 8 months to work through our one charge, so it's definitely going to take a while, and it might be even another few years until we hear what about Manchester City. But obviously, Everton's has been applied instantly, and we've gone from 14 points in the league now to 4, and we're joint bottom in the Premier League. So suddenly we're looking like we've got a battle on our hands. And first game, Manchester United at Goodison, a game that's always a great game to watch, regardless of the situation. But I think that the feeling will only be intensified this weekend because of the situation. And I'm expecting a really good atmosphere at Goodison. What do you think of the prospect of playing Everton at this time? And do you wish you were probably playing us in a few weeks when all this had calmed down a bit?
Well, forgive me for doing a bit of name dropping here, but we've just done a podcast earlier with Ashley Williams. He jumped on it.
No, really.
Um, Yeah, he works with one of the lads that I opened the channel with, Steve House, and they were filming, and then actually came and jumped on our podcast, and he was
All
saying
right.
he thinks that the Everton players will be up for it. He said he thought that Everton will win this game because I asked him, like, will they not leave him feeling deflated because they on a good bit of form got themselves well away from the relegation zone, and then to have this point deduction. And he said no, he thinks it'll galvanise them, it'll galvanise the fans and the players, so there'll be that extra motivation of like a bit of a point to prove and a bit of feeling of sort of almost the injustice of it all. Like, right, we're gonna turn up today. So I'm not sure, to be honest with you, because there's that outside of the argument, but then there's part of me that feels that it must be pretty deflating. You've had a good bit of form, and then now you're right in the middle of a relegation zone fight. I think a lot of this just depends on how United turn up, because you don't know what you're going to get with Manchester United this season at all. I mean, last season there was a bit of that. Our away record was patchy, to say the least. Against the top teams, it was woeful. Against the teams in the bottom half, it was very good. Our home record was very good. I think after the first month, we didn't lose a game at Old Trafford. This season, again, it's been up and down. So I feel like I have to say this when I come on your podcast. If United turn up, no disrespect, I think we'll win. I think if
You'd
United
think
turn
so.
up, player for player, we've got a better team than Everton. But Everton do have the players and have the, as Dice has proven over the last few weeks as well, can get a result. They can. And you can get a result against United. Anyone can get a result against United if we don't turn up. Certainly Everton can. So I think a lot of this just depends on United. If United turn up and we can sort of put in this kind of performances that have been missing this season, you've seen one or two halves here and there rather than an actual full 90 minutes where we played really well, then I think we'll win. But it's not a given. And I'm going to listen to Ashley Williams. He thinks that the Evertonians will be up for it, the crowd will be up for it, and the team will be up for it. So it's going to be a tough game either way. I still do fancy United. I feel that because of what's going on at Everton, I expect it to have more of a detrimental effect to the team, to the Everton team, than a positive one and a galvanising one. But you just don't know United this season. It's impossible to tell.
Yeah, they are the most unpredictable team, aren't they? And to think that you have won your last 4 out of 5 in the Premier League is just unbelievable to think, really, when you feel like what the current narrative around the club is. But I think on the Everton aspect, I do think that it will galvanise the players. It'll certainly get the fans up. I think that Goodison's going to be unbelievable at the weekend. And I think Manchester United not only have to play well, but they also have to manage that atmosphere as well. And can they block out all of this, because it's going to be intense. We've heard rumors about protests. There's full plans in place now for protest banners. There's a march before the game. There's cards that have been printed. There's so much going on in that game, and it could affect Everton players too. Perhaps it could be that it has a detrimental effect on them. But I feel like if anything, it's going to give them that extra edge to try and get through this. And if we can go and get a win, lift ourselves out of the relegation zone, that would be unbelievable for us mentally as well, just to kind of get away from all that. Because really, how Everton have played this season, you wouldn't think we should be in a relegation battle. And now, because of the 10 points, we're bound to be. So hopefully we can get it reduced. But I do think that the players will be all right. And I feel like the mentality they've already got should help them carry through this season. But individually on that game, I think Manchester United have got more quality than us, without a doubt. But your manager's not even going to be on the touchline, is he? He's in the director's box for this game. Does that have an impact, or could that actually have a positive impact? Because I know some of you guys don't really like him that much.
I love Eric Ten Hag. I know there's fans online who've been questioning him, and as I said, there's fans in the stadium who've questioned him. But I think he's a good manager. I think he had a very good first season. I like what he did at Ajax as well. I think he has struggled a little bit this season, no denying that. But I think, like I said, he's not had it easy with injuries. And I think we've suffered too much of getting rid of managers and just going in this cycle of backing a manager for a bit. He's doing well, and then when things start going wrong, we just sack him. And I feel like Ten Hag is a manager that does deserve more time. In terms of the suspension, which I think it's a new rule now, and it 3 hours and you're suspended if you're a manager,
Yeah.
which I think he's the first one to have that. I don't think it makes a massive difference. I'm never a big believer in a manager on the touchline shouting and stuff has much of an impact. You can have a little bit of one, but I don't think it's one of those where the players going, "Oh right, okay, yeah, what's the manager said?" You can still relay information to the dugout or whatever. I'm sure there's ways around that. I think it was Jose Mourinho. I used to have it, didn't he? When he got banned, he used to have the do you remember the coach with
Yeah, the
his hilarious
telephone and all that kind of
the
stuff. Yeah.
telephone and his hat on and with his earphones in or covering his ears. He was always
Yeah,
one
yeah.
for finding little loopholes, wasn't he, Mourinho? But I don't think it matters too much because obviously the manager can still give the team talk and give the halftime talk or whatever, and he can still relay information to the dugout in terms of substitutes and stuff. So I think it's almost irrelevant. It's slightly, it's a bit of a curiosity. Oh, the manager's not in the dugout because of a ban, but I don't expect it to have too much of an impact either way. I certainly don't think it'll have a positive one. I just don't think it'll have much of a negative one either.
Yeah, I don't think historically it's actually had that much of an effect. It's just a news story in the build up to a game, isn't it? I suppose. And at the end of the day, it's the players that are out there, and he'll have still been able to speak to them before the game. And you'd imagine devised a plan to hopefully for you guys stop Everton. But onto the players, because they're the ones who can actually decide what happens in that match. Who is it that Everton really need to be worried about? And who's the current players that you're thinking this is where we can break Everton down?
Um, I think for me, the players that Everton should be worried about, or a United player that I'd look to and say, okay, is he someone who could, get us the win? Is probably Bruno Fernandes. I think if you look at United this season, we've struggled for goals. We haven't been scoring at all. Rasmus Højlund's not got any goals in the Premier League. He scored in the Champions League. I think he's one of the leading joint top scorer in the Champions League. But in the Premier League, he's been struggling. Marcus Rashford, excuse me, who last season was flying. I think he's got one goal this season. So we have been struggling in that department. But Bruno, he does create a lot of chances. I think he's created like one of the top 5 mark chances in the Premier League. He can score as well. He scored a great goal during the international break for Portugal. I know that's not the same as scoring in the Premier League, but he's been scoring in the Premier League as well. So I think Bruno is a player that when things aren't going well, he can, not all the time, but he can show you what he's about. He can be that player who can produce that little bit of magic and create something for you. The problem for that is, and that sort of leads me onto the next point about Everton. You talk about Everton and who I'm wary of. What I am wary of is your defence causing stopping happening, because we've been struggling for goals. And I think is it the kid Branthwaite, who United have been loosely linked with, not
of course
much,
they have.
one of those.
Every big club match,
everyone. Yeah, I didn't even news the other day. It was like, oh, United are linked with, and it's like literally every player that plays well, but he's been playing very well. And I think is it Tarkowski who's played alongside him, who's doing a decent job as well. I think he's a Mancunian as well, isn't he, Tarkowski?
Yeah, he is.
So yeah, so I think if those two turn up, then United might have a bit of a problem getting goals. And we know that at Goodison, you'll always fancy Everton to nick one. So I'm really hoping that the likes of Højlund and Rashford and Bruno can turn up and get us that goal. Otherwise, it could be a pretty long afternoon for us.
I thought you'd say Bruno, to be fair. He's the player that I look to see that he is that real danger man for Man United. And he always seems to do well at Goodison Park as well. And, he's that guy that can thread that pass to get through this real tough, organised defence that you're going to see with Everton. And you will see that. It will be a similar template performance to what we've seen in the away games. I think we'll almost have to play as the away team against you guys and let you have the ball, because Ten Hag at the moment, he wants you guys to be brilliant in transition, doesn't he? And we want to give you as little transition moments as possible. So by giving you the ball, then see what can you do with it. But is that actually dangerous to then give the ball to Bruno Fernandes and let him work his magic? So it's going to be an interesting tactical battle, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's so difficult to call because on his day, Bruno is as good as any midfielder in the Premier League. I genuinely believe that. And he's got the numbers to prove that over the years since he arrived at Manchester United. But he's another one who can be a bit erratic. And what he can do is get frustrated. And if things aren't going his way, and if Everton do sort of sit back and let United have the ball, and we're struggling to create anything and we're struggling to break down a low block, Bruno will start trying more extravagant things. He'll start shooting from further away. He'll start trying passes that are, even longer, like 70-yard passes or whatever. And he can not lose his head, but just sort of try a little bit too much, if that makes sense. So that's one concern I have. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. It's very difficult because you've got a team in Everton that are obviously right at the bottom of the table, but not because of losing a load of games, because of this points deduction. And you've got a team in Manchester United who have been struggling, have been erratic, yet are the most informed team. So it's almost impossible to call this one. I just feel like you just don't know what's going to happen. It's so many ifs and buts. If he turns up or if he don't turn up or if this happens, yeah, it's very difficult. But I do feel that Bruno could be the key.
There's a reason why, of course, this game is the 4:30 on Sky, the main event, isn't it, really? And Everton have won 6 out of the last 9, United 4 out of the last 5, 2 informed teams, really. And there's obviously a massive story to pair with that as well. And for Everton to win, I think we have to frustrate you. We have to upset the likes of Bruno Fernandes. He needs to be trying long shots and long ranges like that. And it needs to get to a point where the atmosphere almost takes over in our game, because obviously if we go toe to toe with Man United, we're not going to beat them. So we have to have a way of playing that helps us nick it on set pieces, nick it on a counter attack perhaps. And I think Bruno Fernandes might be one to target for the players who could upset him a little bit, because obviously Man United's captain, isn't he? He's the one they look to, and he's obviously a leader on the pitch. And if he gets upset, then does that have an effect on the rest of the team then? And does that just make you guys crumble, perhaps? Is that something that could go wrong?
It can do. It can do. Sometimes when Bruno isn't on it, the team can sort of rally anyway, and we can still find someone else, or we can still produce something. I mean, Casemiro. I know I don't expect Casemiro to be fit this weekend, but Casemiro's popped up with a few goals. We've had goals from sort of random players and spread out throughout the team. It's not just Bruno. It's just our front three just haven't been amongst the goals at all. But he is a big player for us. He is. I think one sort of trait that I'm hoping comes to fruition this weekend is with Goodison. It's a tough ground to go to, and the crowd can get. I was talking to my friend about it. I like Goodison. It's good to stay. It's good ground. It's an old school ground, and it can be a difficult ground to go to. And I think what can happen, especially if you've got a crowd that are angry anyway, you've got a bit of fire in the belly. There's a protest going on. They're a bit miffed because you've had this. We've had it. You've been at Old Trafford where there's protests about the Glazers, and there's a lot of anger anyway. And you're behind the team, but if things start going wrong and the team aren't performing, and you go a goal behind, that sort of anger can end up bubbling over and getting taken out on your own team. And it can be one of those where I think if United can get an early goal or take the lead, then we can almost get the crowd working against Everton. If that sort of passion and enthusiasm and anger turns into frustration and what they're seeing on the pitch, then that could be a big positive for Manchester United. But I think if Everton take the lead, we'll be up against it, because then you obviously got your tails up. You've got a solid defence anyway that can shut up shop, pretty solid defence, and you've got a crowd that are fully behind the team. So I think it's one of those. I know it's a cliche, but I think that first goal could prove so important.
Oh, it is massively important. And it's been important all season for us. When we take the lead, we haven't lost this season. That's a prime example of it. We literally haven't lost. And when we go behind, our stats are not very good at coming back. So it is true to say that the first goal is going to be crucial. It has been in every Everton game, and I'm sure it will be again. And I think if we're to win, it will be a tight game. But if you guys win, I imagine then there'll be a couple more goals. I think we can beat you, but you would expect that Man United could. If you guys are on it, you'd expect to win, wouldn't you? Without a doubt. You guys are obviously pushing for Europe, Champions League even, and we're trying to kind of stabilize at this point and just have a few seasons where we're just stable for a bit. But let's go on to team news now, and who's actually going to be playing in this game. Obviously, we've heard a few things this week. Luke Shaw's been past fit, I think. Onana might be back. Hoyland, what's the status on these players? Can you tell us?
I think the last we heard was that Luke Shaw should be fit, should be available, which was a bit of a surprise. I know he'd been in training, but I thought it might be a few weeks. I think Onana had a minor injury, I think it was, when he was away with Cameroon. And Hoyland, I think, has been trained. I don't know if he's training, but I think he could be available as well. So I think those three could be in the mix. I hope so, because I think we need all three of them, to be honest with you. And I think there's one or two others who, Martinez obviously is a long-term injury. He's not going to be fit. I think Casemiro's out as well. But I think the fact that Luke Shaw coming back into the team, if that is the case, that's a massive boost for us, because we've missed him. And I think last season, he had a very good season. Marcus Rashford as well had a good season. Not all the time playing on that same left-hand side, but a lot of the time. So maybe there's an option to get, or a way to get Marcus going again if Luke Shaw's there. We'll have to wait and see, because Luke Shaw obviously does play some games at centre-back as well, so I'm not even sure he's going to be at left-back. But those players are massive for us, and with they're available, the likes of Shaw, the likes of Hoyland. I know it might sound like a bit of a contradiction to say Hoyland's not scored in the Premier League, but we need him. But he has been putting in the good performances. And we've seen it in the Champions League. He's got 5 goals in the Champions League. So I just feel that once he starts scoring in the Premier League, he'll get a bit of a run going, because he's been playing well. He's just not found the back of the net. And he's shown in the Champions League. I mean, he scored against Bayern Munich in Munich. He's not a bad player. You don't bag goals there if you can't score goals. So he just needs to get started in the Premier League. And I'm sure you'll disagree, but I'm hoping he does it this Sunday.
Well, he's had a lot of bad fortune, hasn't he, so far? He's had a few disallowed goals as well, hasn't he? And I feel like he's one of those players that's waiting to explode now. And often players do like getting the first goal against Everton. So I'm going to hope that he doesn't. And I'm going to hope that none of your team score. And in my prediction, which I'm about to make, I'm going to make sure that you guys don't score. I'm going to go with 2-0. Can you give me your prediction? Is Hoyland scoring?
I'll tell you, he might score. Who loves a goal against you? I'm sure you're going to know the answers to this one. Anthony Martial. Anthony Martial loves scoring against
Too
Everton. His
many bad
record against,
memories.
yeah,
Wembley.
his record. There was one, I think, was it 2 seasons ago? His only goal for United all season was against Everton.
Yeah,
Like he does love a goal against you lot.
he does.
Yeah, I think it might be close. I think I'm going to go 1-0 United. I do think it'll be a close game, and I'll go with Hoyland breaking his duck. So I'll go 1-0. But listen, I think I'm in that stage now. I'll take any result, any win. I don't care how we get it. We just need to get a win and sort of keep this, to be fair, decent bit of Premier League form we've got going, because we've got some tough games coming up as well. We've got Champions League where we're sort of hanging by a thread there, and obviously big league games coming up too. So if we can come back after this international break, get a result away at a tough ground like Goodison, it'll be massive.
I suppose you just got to push away all that noise, haven't you? And results is what stops the noise, isn't it? Results is what stops Man United being a news story every week, which obviously they are anyway, because biggest club in England. And obviously a lot of Evertonians would agree with that, because we don't talk about the other big club in England, supposedly.
Exactly.
But yeah, Man United are a massive club. And if they sort the form out now in the league and in the domestic cups as well, I suppose it's just about changing that story, isn't it? It's making sure that the noise isn't there anymore off the pitch, everything's sorted off the pitch, all the other dramas, and just focusing on getting that result.
Yeah, because we've been waiting for this takeover, or this 25% takeover with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. That was meant to be finalised during the international break. That's not happened now. It's been, the report site's been pushed back to next week. It's been dragging on. I think it was about a year ago that the Glazers made this announcement that they were looking for strategic alternatives, whatever that means, for sort of, in terms of the ownership or the finance of the club or whatever. So we're waiting for this sort of new era, if you will, at Manchester United with Ratcliffe and the new sporting director and all the rest of it. But that's not happened yet. But like you say, focus on what's going on the pitch, get a result, and just keep moving forward in that way.
Definitely. I think it's going to be a good game. And of course, the Sky cameras are there, 4:30. It's so many stories on either side, but it's been great to have you on. And before you go, I've got one random question for you. And I'm sure the answer isn't one of the Glazers, but I'll ask you, 3 people, can be celebrities, players, actors, anybody who you'd like to have a meal with. Who do you want to sit down with and why?
I'd like to sit down with the Premier League lawyers, and ask them why it's taking so long for these 115 charges for Manchester City to get dealt with. And if they're going to start throwing a bucket at teams like Everton and giving them a 10-point deduction, then they need to relegate City to the Unibond or whatever it's called. That's the only fair thing, and strip them of all them titles.
I love that. And all 3 are going to be lawyers, are they? You're just going to grill them all.
Yeah, like the X Factor, like a reverse X Factor, with me as the judge and them 3 sat in front of me and me just giving it him, saying, "Come on, it's taking too long. Let's get it done."
Evertonians are going to love you for that, because that's what we need to see now. We're looking with a close eye. How they deal with them other cases are going to be extremely interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think United fans will be joining you on that front.
Well, that's good if we're all united in this protest.
Yeah,
on Sunday.
till after Sunday.
I suppose.
Sunday, after Sunday we'll be mates.
Yeah, good luck for the rest of the season apart from Sunday, I suppose. But thanks so much for coming on, Jay.
No worries, Ellis. It's always a pleasure. Take care, bro.
Yeah, so hopefully Everton can get the victory on Sunday, 4:30 on Sky Sports. Goodison Park's going to be absolutely crazy. So do leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Give us your score predictions. And that's all from the Toffee Blues. See you later.